The strongest people in the room are often the ones who had become strong before they ever had a choice. Vanessa Di Marco is one of them. Author, certified, hypnotherapist, and subconscious reprogramming coach. She has written a raw, unfiltered account of growing up in chaos, building a life on survival instincts, burning out completely, and then choosing actively, deliberately to rewrite the program that had been running in her mind since before she was born. By the end of this episode, you are going to understand three things. One, why the skills that help you survive are the same ones, quietly holding you back. Two, how the beliefs formed before you were 10 years old are still making decisions for you right now. Three, what does actually look like to reprogram that practically in real time. Hey guys, this is Behind the Build, and today my guest is Vanessa Di Marco. Hi. How
Hello.
are
Thank
you?
you for having me. I'm
You're
feeling
welcome.
really good today.
That's good. That's good. Okay, before we start our show, and we do have so many questions today.
Yes.
Are you ready for that?
I'm ready for the questions.
Okay. So before all of this, who are you? What lit you up as a kid?
Ooh, I love this. So, as a kid, I really loved dancing. I loved movement. I was the kid always in the garage making up different routines, making up different dances, asking anyone who would come watch us, whether it was my parents or neighbors. Um, that was one thing I loved doing, dance, movement, but also my dream was traveling. I'd always admired traveling, a
Do you
family
travel?
trip. What I do now is I travel, but what most people don't know is that that was my childhood dream. And because of the life that I had, which we'll talk more about today,
Right.
truly I didn't always have those experiences. But I did have one experience as a child that I remember a few moments. One was we would go away to up north. It was like my version of a cottage experience. It was public, but I loved being in the sand and by the water. And a few years later, I had a chance to go with family to a place in Florida where we had some family living there at the time, and that was the one family trip that I remember before my life drastically changed. But
Yeah.
it is a memory that I keep in my mind of when I think of my little self. That's where she is. She's just on the beach having a good time.
Good
So that
time.
was my favorite thing as a child to think of
Yeah.
or to do.
When did that start to fade?
So that quickly started to shift when I was about 10 years old. And that's when I started to observe so much of the weight of what my parents were going through, what, I was observing around me, trying to speak up, not feeling heard. That's the age where you really absorb everything, but you don't necessarily have the mind to rationalize it yet. You're just absorbing, absorbing, absorbing. And it really started to fade when I saw the disconnection between them, each other, my parents themselves, as well as with me. So I felt like, do they see me? Do they hear me? I just want them to be happy. I want them to feel good too. And I very quickly learned how to absorb everyone else's emotions around me as my way of surviving, as my way of continuing not feeling so much. It was just so much to feel that I would take on everyone else's as well, because the thought is, if they don't have to feel it, then maybe they can be more available to be for me as a child. So it's quickly started to fade after I would say, my incident, our family incident at about 10 years old.
Okay. So when you say you sense everything from your mom's womb, right? So walk me through what does it mean?
So sensing from my mother's womb was actually further years later in a therapy session that I was doing with hypnosis that we call hypnotherapy,
Yeah.
allowed me to access memories from my subconscious mind. And this was the very first time, yes, it can happen, that I was able to access feeling before birth. And I didn't know it was possible, but I remember being taken back in this memory, and I could just feel myself being in my mother's womb, and I can feel how much stress, how much pressure she was under, how much she almost was worried to even have me because of all of the stresses. I mean, she moved here when she was about 17. She was pretty much on her own. She didn't have family members, so she would have already had my sister by then. I was the second one, and I could just feel the concern about it and how much she was already dealing with. I could feel the sadness. I could feel so much. And this is when I had really, in my own session, was given access to feeling just how much I was carrying before I even had a chance at life yet. But my heart was already ready to break.
Tell me more about the relationship between you and your mom.
Ooh, this is a deep one. It's a very long one, but it started off very pure, I would say, very innocent in its own essence. And things quickly escalated when her depression became much more severe. And, at that age, we don't know these things. I didn't
Right.
have necessarily the resources to understand, but I can observe the issues. And so I really observed my mother not take care of herself from a very young age. I watched her essentially try and give up without giving up. And I had to sit there and watch her wither away on the couch. Her alcohol bottles left over there, no one's watching, the anger that was coming from her. And I developed this really deep resentment and anger towards her because I was so frustrated that she couldn't, I felt like she didn't care about her life. And there was a few instances where she did almost take her life, and I became very familiar with that possibility. So when it came to the moment where, an incident happened with a car accident where I thought, oh, she must be drinking again. It was a very, very scary moment for me to realize this could be it. This could be the time where it really happened. And it didn't. And she ended up getting support
Okay.
from me and my sister at that time. We were very young. And she committed to that support and ended up overcoming that issue. And that's really when the healing started to happen.
Okay.
Slowly, by me getting over the anger and realizing that, yes, our parents messed up. I was very angry with the things that had happened, the words that were said in exchange to me growing up. But the truth is, they're also just people, and they were trying their best. And there was a lot of intergenerational trauma that carried over
Right.
there as well.
Yeah.
So that's when I realized that I am responsible for my healing here, and I can only take it as far as it can go with her,
Right.
but I have a loving relationship with her now, which is very beautiful of me to be able to say because it's not always the outcome.
That's great. That's great. Okay, walk me through the day at 10 years old. Not the summary, the real one. The
The
actual
real
one.
day at 10 years old. Well, it pretty much happened like this. You can picture 10-year-old children running around the house. We had these wooden floors. They were very creaky, and like you could just hear us running around. And my mother was there. She was somewhere. This is my memory that I'm going through. But I remember we were quite loud, and that wasn't a good time to be loud.
Yeah.
My father was downstairs, and he was the one who really disciplined us. And I just heard boom, 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 like he was coming up the stairs. Me and my sister are looking at each other, we're kind of freaking out. I remember running like away. We wanted to just run away, and I almost got this feeling like where I let her go first. And I just heard him walking towards, the living room where I was. I was standing in front of the couch, and boom, that's all I remember.
So what happened?
He went to go, with his arm, like hit, and it caught me right in my face, and it completely knocked me out. And I remember being left I fully left my body. I just completely blacked out. And then when I came back, I was just kind of looking down at my hands, and you could see that there was blood there, because it had hit my nose pretty badly. And I had realized, like, oh my gosh, like, what just happened? But believe it or not, that's not the part that truly hurt me. What really hurt was that the people that I loved the most, that I
Yeah.
trusted,
Yeah.
had just stood still at the incident that had just happened. And that's when my world completely shifted upside down, because in that moment I realized, oh my goodness, my world isn't safe. The people I trust aren't safe. And, I had to wake up, pack my bags, and go to school the next day with just flooding with shame, because I didn't even know how I was going to answer anyone if they asked me
Some
what had
question.
happened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what happened when you go to school
Mm.
and you met your friends? Did somebody ask what is actually going on with you?
To be honest, no one asked me anything. I just remember completely zoning out. Like, I was on autopilot that day. I maybe mumbled things to people, but no one asked me. And I was just thinking, oh my goodness, because if they did, I wouldn't have even known what to say.
Right.
I think they knew, something was obviously up with me, but no one did ask. And that's the first time I realized that my job was to really not say anything, because as a child, when something like that happens, you think, well, it must be me.
Right.
It must be my fault. I did something wrong, because
Yeah.
if I just didn't do what I was doing, then this would have never happened, right? We can't rationalize fully yet that this is, this wasn't discipline. This was deeper than that. It was
That's right.
trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, have you been to any counselor? Somebody came to you. You
Yes.
discussed
So
with
after the
anyone?
incident, there was some conversation, whether it was between my mother, of course, something had happened. They did send someone to us to chat with me
Okay.
about the incident. And I remember her coming to the door, and, we sat down right where everything had happened. Ironic. And she was asking me questions, so everyone else kind of had to go away. And I just remember looking at her, like, with this whole persona, like, I don't know what you're doing here. You don't need to be here. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
And she had asked me a specific question about, like, what had happened, how I feel. And it was that feeling question, that emotion, where my throat just, like, got all,
Bro.
yeah, it just
Completely.
clogged up completely. And I held it in for a moment. And that was truly the moment where I realized, oh my gosh, I just betrayed myself
Yeah.
by lying about this, by saying what, I was either told or think that I should say to protect the image or the representation of the family, which is completely understandable at that age. But deep down, I did something much deeper than that. I internalized the belief that I can't trust myself. I can't truly use my voice. I can't speak. I can't say what really happened in order to receive love. And that was a very, deep belief that then set up the next 10 years of my life and
Right.
caused me a lot of issues along the way.
Why usually people take everything inside? What's the main reason? Like, I just want to understand for the people.
Why people usually internalize their
Yes.
pain? I think because we can't fully rationalize it yet, right? We can't understand what's happening. And so I think, for me, I believe one of two things happen. We either externalize it, where we allow the outside world to kind of repeat that pattern. And for me, I believe I personally internalized it. So I developed this belief that, well, if they're going to hurt me, if the outside world isn't safe, well, then
Yeah.
I'll just take care of it.
Right.
I'd rather be the one to do it. And that caused me a lot of self-sabotage.
Right.
Caused me a lot of relationships with the wrong people,
Yeah.
in the wrong places. And it kept that pattern of, well, it must be me. I must carry this burden. I must be this problem.
Right.
And we can see later on, that that's not true, but we just don't know it yet.
Right. Right. So by the high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you had everyone fooled. We're talking about the mask that you carry after
Yes.
that, right?
Yeah.
So you have the good grades, popular in the school, right? So what was actually happening behind that?
Yeah, I would say I had decent grades. I didn't put too much effort into my school, but I did very well for the situation I was in. Uh, and I would say that I had everyone fooled for the most part
Yeah.
because no one really asked, right? No one really asked me questions. No one really kind of brought it up. And I got really good at having this persona
Yeah.
of it's fine because I believed that if I had, or I had learned growing up that if I had talked about what was really going on, that I knew I would potentially be judged, shamed, looked down upon. It was, I came from a little bit of less than where I was at, not the lowest,
Yeah.
but less than where the majority had. And so I felt this need, this keeping up with the Joneses, that this persona of, well, it must look pretty on the outside. I was quite ashamed, actually. I was quite ashamed of where I lived, what I had. Even though now I realize how lucky I am to have that. But at that time, it was really about, hiding all of that. And so I got really, really good at controlling that persona of, so much so that, some kids assumed, oh, well, she's just another one of those rich girls, she
Yeah.
has everything figured out. And that could not be further from the truth. I mean, I was going from school back home, trying to study. I never knew what I was going to walk into that day. The minute I opened the door, I don't know, my mother, it went from cleaning her wine bottles, sometimes alcohol bottles, sometimes really severe, forms of it where I was cleaning it up. Then I was on the phone calling a credit union, being like, hey, do I have money for lunch? You put money in the account for lunch for school that week. Figuring out maybe I should get a job so that I can make some money. And I was working at a very young age, but luckily that kept me busy.
Right.
But I had a very adult responsibilities by the time I got to high school. At the same time, I was
Right.
struggling.
So are you the older one?
I'm the youngest one.
You are the youngest
Yeah, the
one.
youngest one.
Okay, so question. So how did you carry this persona? Like how hard was it to, just take it over and, be a someone else that you are not?
Believe it or not, it's really not that hard. It's
It's not
actually
that? Okay.
quite easy because you tend to get used to this performance, right? It's a performance energy. I perform. I very much know what it's like, but it becomes easier on the outside. When it hits you is when the room is quiet.
Right.
When there's no one around, then
Then it's just
the
you.
truth starts to
Right.
cripple up where I feel very lost. I feel sad. I feel disconnected from myself in a way where I almost rather be, at school or doing things or keeping myself busy with definitely bad habits, repeating a
Right.
lot of bad habits, because you don't have to feel, right? That's why we numb it. So we don't have access to feeling how heavy it is. So feeling my emotions, again, I learned wasn't safe.
Right.
And so it was easier for me to keep moving, keep busy, keep this, act up than it was for me to truly feel. That didn't feel safe to me at all.
Right. Okay. Moving forward to the next question.
Yes.
So the bulimia, right?
Yes.
You said you didn't even know where
Mm.
you learned it. So what is giving you?
Yeah, I believe, well, I do know I learned it from my mother, but now I know that now, but I believe that, when it's interesting when I observe children, they from a very young age, they always start this um, relationship with food. It's like, eat your meal. I'm like, no. And it's interesting to look at it now because it was maybe the one thing that I could control. Again, I just started making this up. I wouldn't eat, or I'd eat very selective, and then I'd want to throw it all up, and to the point where so much so that I have dentists ask me, if I drink acid for a living, seriously,
No way.
because of the damage that it
Right.
did.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until this teacher at school, I remember I did a lot of sports then, that she kind of asked me, hey, what, is everything okay? And it shocked me. It really took me by surprise. Not that she asked, like, not that she saw it, but that she cared enough to say something.
Right.
And something in me really shifted that day where I thought, wow, someone does see me. Someone does see.
Somebody see.
Yeah.
Do you go to university?
I did go to university. Interesting enough, I didn't have the push that, most people would experience from their parents. I actually didn't have the push at all to do really good in my school or in my grades. That was an expectation I had given myself, probably because of this persona I had made about
Yeah.
myself, right? That, oh, well, my parents care if I go to school. Well,
Yeah.
they didn't.
They're happy with the person that you were, right?
I would say they were very occupied that
Okay.
they didn't even have the capacity to think about it. But
Okay.
for the most part, of course, they would want me to complete my studies. And really, that kept me busy.
What did you study?
So I went to university. I believe I chose retail management because my first few jobs, fun fact, I got into commission-based sales.
Okay.
And so I was selling shoes because I really liked, I
nice.
thought I really liked fashion industry at that time. But what I realized was I understood people really well. And so I knew how to sell them the shoes that they felt good in. And so I started making a lot of commission by selling shoes. But really, I was just doing what I do now and working with people and, what they believe and what they're striving for in themselves. And, that's a powerful thing. But it got me through high school. And I remember not worrying much about going to university because I was told that I had the money for the tuition. So I wasn't so worried about it. And boy, did I wish that I did worry, because when I went to go pay for my tuition, my school, the $60,000 or so, the savings that I was told was there was nothing.
Where did it go?
It's a good question. We don't know. I don't know. Perhaps in my father's hands somewhere. But I don't know that fully. Maybe we can chat later on where that happened.
Sure, no worries. So when did you start your professional career?
So I would say my professional career came outside during high school. I mean, during university. So I was doing some internships. So that was me, surviving. Again, here's my pattern: cycling, overworking, burning out, doing my paid work, getting my internship, probably not eating properly. And then eventually it landed me a paid job. To me, it was that dream job, that agency job where after a few years I was able to travel. I was able to do really top tier events, like VIP style. And I just thought I had hit my all-time high, that it was so successful, that I had everything I could have possibly wanted from before. Growing up, just having this career, working with top tier celebrities, having access to that, until, the moment happened where I pretty much lost all of it.
What is this collapse? When it happened?
So I started to, it was people knew me as the workhorse. I was super serious in my work. It was overworking, but it didn't necessarily get me the results or the promotions or the extra money that I had wanted, right? And I had still caught myself with this pattern of doing so much. And so my patterns were continuing into my work.
Exhausting yourself, basically, right?
Just exactly, overdoing it until I completely burnt out again and again, which I know very well how to do, unfortunately. And that's the moment where I realized, when everything stopped, when I actually ended up losing that job, that I was overworking so much for.
Yeah. You had an accident.
Yes.
And right on the spot, you just went to the work. So walk me through that story. What happened? What you were thinking at that time?
I don't even think people might know.
Go to the work rather than staying there at the moment.
Yeah, I don't even think people might know my work know that I did this. I was driving to work in the morning. I hadn't slept, probably because I was, again, over exhausted. And when you're driving, it is an autopilot thing. I mean, you're not consciously thinking, oh, I'm driving, I know where I'm going. We just know we're on autopilot. And unfortunately, I was going up a side street and a car just completely came out through the side and completely T-boned the side of my car. And I was in pure shock. Yeah. I was in so much shock that I completely dissociated. I got out of the car and, that's when other people started coming. I had to wait till they got to the scene, ask the questions, and I'm thinking okay, are we done? I gotta go. Yeah. And it wasn't until the officer, at the scene, or prior to the officer coming to the scene, who asked me hey, you just got into an accident. Like,
Yeah.
is everything okay? I don't know if going to work, like, I don't know if that's something you should do. And I just remember looking at him in a daze, like, huh. Okay, well, I gotta go. So, he almost got me to come back online there for a moment, but it was just too overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
I did end up going to work, and it wasn't long until I had completely had, I guess it's called whiplash.
Yeah.
I was inflamed all over my body, so much so. I had to actually, I remember, call for help. My sister had to like put me in the car and take me to the hospital to get immediate support because it was in so much pain. And then I had stayed in the hospital a little bit after that to allow my nervous system, my muscles to just calm down.
Right.
But I refused it, kicking and screaming right until the end. Like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. This didn't happen, nothing happened. I was just rejecting the reality.
So, at what point did your body stop cooperating with the story your mind was telling it?
Wow. So there's a few times that it did that throughout. And as we know, things tend to happen in bits and pieces until it literally can't happen anymore. And so I would go through these experiences where my body would tell me enough and I was completely bedridden. When I had lost my job and started to actually have time to feel my emotions for the very first time, it was so much. And so I was so tense, like my jaw was tense. I have, I have chronic pain in my shoulders, that weight, that burden, that responsibility. My body could not handle it anymore. Pushing when it needed rest. I was not listening. I was not asking what it needed. I was not giving it the compassion that I so deeply desired. And so I was again learning how to do the very thing that I had learned that had happened to me, to my very self. And I ended up staying in bed. Honestly, I would say it was like a 6-month recovery. I got very sick and I didn't realize that, wow, this is what it truly feels like to come out of survival mode. That's something they don't tell you.
You probably lose the job that time, right?
I have lost my job already.
Okay.
Yeah. So I actually had no choice
Yeah.
but to not do anything.
Right.
I had to face the fact that I didn't have anywhere to go. I was physically not well. I couldn't move much, right?
Yeah.
And, maybe another side of the story, but it really felt like it was never going to end. I don't know if anyone else has felt like that when, I would get sick or I'd get ill. It just, to me, the thoughts in my mind were like, you're never going to get it. This is never going to get better.
I read that you were on the bed for almost a month, right? And after losing the job. So, what was that actually feel like?
It was really physical pain. I believe that I was releasing a lot of the trauma through my body. And sometimes it can get stuck, right? And I didn't fully have the resources just yet. I didn't, so I started doing the different types of therapies and different modalities a little bit after that moment. But it had nowhere to go. I just completely tensed up and it just stuck like that. I was in so much pain. I remember I couldn't even sleep. Like it was just turning hurt so much. And it was mixed with a little bit of, probably getting really sick. And then also the fact that my body was completely shut off and shut down. And my mind really plummeted at that time too. I was having very difficult time getting myself to get up and be excited about life.
Yeah.
So some very, very dark or deep thoughts surfaced at that time for me.
What truly scared you the most? Like the whole, the time that you were on the bed. What moment did you say, okay, at that moment I was so scared, like maybe I'll lose my life or something?
It felt like, is this ever going to end? That was the thought in my mind. Like, am I stuck here forever? Will this ever end? And I almost believed that it won't end. This pain, it won't go away. And that's a very dangerous place to be, because that's when the dark, the suicidal thoughts start coming in. Like, well, I don't want to live anymore if this is what I have to live with. And so I was able to observe those thoughts come up and feel them and then understand that I was separate from them. So I was able to feel like, okay, wow, is this truly how I've been feeling? Is this true? And that moment of questioning, that pause, shifted my thoughts.
Right.
It allowed me just a second longer to get out of that moment. And typically what happens when these thoughts come is we don't want them, but we don't want to feel them because they're not good. I did not want to feel it. But once I had that break, that pause, then I could interrupt them. And then I started to flood in with like, oh, okay, this does get better. This can go away. I don't like this feeling, but it doesn't need to be forever. So I just remember having that few of those plummeting moments of questioning. It's like a questioning of, can I handle this? Is this too much?
Okay. When did you start doing the therapy?
Yeah, so immediately after.
At what moment that you realize, okay, now you need a therapy now?
Immediately after I lost my job, I knew, I said, I need to talk to someone. For the first time, I admitted that. I come from a middle-class family, you know, like we're taught that therapy is for something when something's wrong with you, you know?
Yeah.
But the truth is that's not it at all. Therapy is actually just, to me, someone to help me understand the thoughts, to bounce them back to me, which is why I love coaches so much before I hired my first coach. So I did some therapy, you know, I did the talk therapies, I did the somatic work. That really helped me because that helped me with the body.
Right.
I went on a little bit of an adventure. I started traveling. I started doing, you know, different types of modalities, some spiritual modalities, or I would term them that, you know, energetic coaches, whether it was Reiki and all kinds of things. But it wasn't until I came across hypnosis and hypnotherapy where it really shifted for me. Because by that time I got used to talking about my issues, but I wasn't actually taking steps to change at this point. I was still living at home. I had changes happen, but I hadn't actually took aligned action on anything yet. I still felt stuck. I still felt like I couldn't do something with this information. And it wasn't until I had hypnosis and I hired my first coach. I had found out about hypnosis and I was interested in doing it. And I thought, well, why not use me? Why not use myself as an experiment to try it on? And I learned about it. I hired my first coach. He was very aligned. And it was, I think I had only done 3 sessions. By the time I was done, I was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. And bless her, because I was not an easy client to get me to do anything. I was very stubborn because taking action meant I had to face my fears.
Right.
But getting support in hypnosis, talking to my subconscious mind, allowed me to understand what my belief was and how to rewrite that. And it was very effective for me then to move forward after that.
Right. Sometimes I feel like you have to come out from the victim mindset too, right? And that's really important, you know, to come out all these scenarios. Tell me about it.
Oof, that is a hot topic for me because I have a hard time with victim mindset because some of the, you know, I have my own story, but some of the people I've come across, especially in this line of work, have really intense stories. We all do. We all have a story. And it's up to us and to go as deep as that, understanding that we have a choice, that I can use this as fuel. I can use this to serve. I can use this to support someone, including myself, or I can let this take me.
Right.
And those stories usually sound like, well, this is happening to me. Why is this happening to me? Me.
Yeah.
And we're not conscious of that. We're not conscious of the me mentality. And it doesn't really do us any good in the end. Because once I was able to attach to something greater than me, I was able to do what it took, to use it, change it as fuel, and empower myself to speak, to talk about it, to shift my story. I'm no longer what happened to me. It's no longer what happened to me. It's who I became because of it. It's the becoming that is really the point.
Right.
not what happens to us. And that's something that they don't tell you very early.
So now you are a successful hypnotherapist as well, right? So tell me about like what is hypnotherapy?
So hypnotherapy uses hypnosis in the form of therapy. So when most people think of hypnosis, they think of a guy on a stage making people do weird things. And yes, that happens, but this is for the purpose of therapy. And why is because if I want something in my life, I
Right.
really want to not repeat the patterns that I was repeating, this self-sabotage that I was constantly cycling in myself, taking it in my work, taking it in my relationships. I observed that I was in the same situation over and over again. And it was really powerful to use your subconscious to ask. It takes the conscious, you don't ask your conscious mind, the story that I tell you consciously might be because, oh, well, I lost my job, I didn't work hard enough, whatever the story is. But when you go and ask my subconscious, it might say, well, I don't believe I'm good enough. Well, I don't believe I'm worthy. Well, this experience happened and I learned that it's not safe to speak in front of people because it's embarrassing or I'll be rejected.
Right.
And so the stories might be very different from each other. And who runs the show is your subconscious.
Right.
And so for me, it was really important to go down there and understand, what is it saying? Because if you can understand what it's saying, then you can adjust it.
Right.
We can rewrite it. We can upgrade it to match what your conscious story mind came up with, or what you want or your desires. And that's really the power that it has. And once I understood that for myself in deeper layers, yes, even as light as, not biting my nails. I'd bitten my nails since I was a little child. And I probably did this twice and I was able to grow my nails. It's very effective.
I bit my nails every single day. Okay.
It's
So
proof.
so walk
Or I
me
should.
through like step by step for the people like who are listening to us
Yes.
right now,
Yeah.
right? What is actually hypnosis if let's say somebody's coming with saying, okay, I can't carry my weight anymore, right? So what step they need to follow or
So I would tell you that hypnosis is not a sleep. You're not sleeping. It's a sleep of the nervous system. And it's actually what we're doing right now. We're talking, right? That's what
right,
it feels like. You're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything. You're just kind of in a relaxation meditative state, an alpha wave brain state. And when that happens, it allows your mind to calm. Or I should say, stop talking.
okay,
And then we can allow access into your subconscious mind. So what I would do is just ask you a bunch of questions based on what you wanted to look at. So if someone came, I'm constantly having circling thoughts. I don't know why I'm having these thoughts. Then that's the thing that we would look into. And then I would ask you a set of questions in your subconscious. You would go back to 3 memories or 3 scenes, we call them, of where this began. And that way it gives us the information we need. And truly, I'm just the guide. And the important part is how to rewire that. So we use a little bit of parts therapy, a little bit of suggestion therapy, which is really the gold, because that's where we rewrite it. And then that repetition that you get, I personally make custom audios for my clients that I ask them to listen to for a certain amount of time that allows their subconscious to then digest that information. And we know this.
right,
Being in this state is on autopilot. We know that you are about 95% of the time.
all right.
We're only using a small portion of our
Do you
conscious
think
mind.
like when this hypnotherapy is happening, so the person who came to you, it's vulnerable?
So no.
Is it? Yeah.
No, actually, you will only ever open up to what you want.
Okay.
There's no power in the world that can force you to do anything you don't want to do.
Okay.
It's based on consent, right? And because it's for therapy, the point is to only get the information we need
Right.
and not more. So we don't spend too much time questioning more than we need to. We just need the right information in order to move you forward. And that's the goal. And so, for example, yes, I've had clients who are having the scene, the awareness, it's coming up into their conscious awareness from their subconscious. We're getting the information, but they might not share everything. And that's okay.
Right.
Because it's based on your own limits your own capacity to how much of that you want to do. But usually during the pre-stage, I ask, is there anything you want to tell me? It might come up.
Yeah.
And that's usually where people tell me the most of things, right?
Right.
We share the most.
Yeah.
And then what comes up usually shocks them. Because perhaps it's a memory of something a school teacher said to you, or another student, or something your mom said, or it's these little moments that
Right.
can have such imprints on us that we might not know, we might not realize, and then it clicks. Oh, okay. And that understanding, that making your own connections is truly where the shift in perspective happens.
Right.
And when you have the shift in perspective, you have a new story
Yeah.
that you can now operate from.
Tell me, what kind of stories that you usually hear?
So I usually hear when they first come to me, it's about either feeling guilty, not enoughness, not feeling worthy, not feeling like they can just be themselves, which ties to that not enoughness. Either fear, being in fear, not being seen, not being heard, being scared to show themselves, which again is seen. Just all of these fears. Sometimes it could be fear of flying, fear of driving a car, nail biting. Like there are habits that come, but usually when it's the mindset, it's more I don't believe in myself enough. That truly I don't know if we even like ourselves enough, right? And a lot of these are just stories that we've learned. We've learned somewhere along the way that this was said to us, imposed on us, presented to us, and then we believed them. And when we believed them, they became our truth. They became the way that it just was, right?
Right.
But that doesn't need to be true.
Right. Someone walks in carrying, I am not enough. So walk me through that, the session step by step.
Right. So if you came to me and said, I want, you had a scenario that you explained and said, I want to feel better about myself, like I'm not enough.
Right.
I would ask you a set of questions about that.
Okay.
And from your conscious mind, so I would ask you, what is the story for your not enoughness, essentially? And then we would go into an induction, which is really just the hypnotic state, a nice relaxation of the nervous system. I would walk you through that process, and then I would take you to 3 different, we call them scenes of your life, memories that are stored in your subconscious of where this not enoughness began.
Okay.
And then I would be guided by the information you gave me. I would get just enough of what we need to understand the story before we go into the next phase of the therapy, which is essentially we do a bit of parts therapy and we do a bit of suggestion therapy to help rewrite the script into a new
Subconscious
script.
mind. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That you can then accept, believe, and follow.
So everybody has like a different kind of therapy. Like one patient has like
100%.
Okay.
They're always going to be different because our life experiences are different.
Okay.
And so when our life experiences are different, it tends to look different on the outside, but deep down, there are some similarities. And usually it's that I don't believe I'm good enough. I don't believe I'm worthy. I'm worthless. No one loves me. I need to do this to receive love. I'm alone. That's usually what's down there. I'm guilty. I'm bad. I'm a bad person. I did something wrong. But as we know, as children, this is just not true.
That's right.
But unfortunately, we have these experiences. They get presented to us, and then we internalize them. We believe them as true.
Right.
And then by the time we reach this age, we've now had our whole life experiences that have just been repeating this truth. It reinforces this because when we have a thought on top of a thought, it's going to present you more evidence about that. I believe Tony Robbins is speaking about this recently this weekend. If I have a thought that I can't do something, it's going to show me more evidence of
Okay.
that bias.
What does it mean?
Exactly. So if I believe that I can do it, that it is possible, it's going to show me more evidence of people, places, and things that make it possible. This is typically hard to do consciously, right? So when we can tap into the subconscious to support us to do this,
Right.
to believe that something can be possible, to change, to shift, to interrupt that pattern, then we can create those new neural pathways that actually show us evidence of that. Once you have the evidence, it becomes much easier to believe it.
Right.
And then it continues to build
Yeah.
from there based on consistency in a way that is sustainable. And it's a big reason why you see a lot of people at New Year's go to the gym and then, 3 weeks later they're done.
Yeah.
Because it's habit changing, it's difficult to do. We can't willpower our way into that because wanting it isn't going to trump the emotion that it's attached to deep down,
Right.
in my
Okay.
opinion.
Okay. In your opinion, you are the expert. So, using the hypnotherapy, is there any way that we can be rich?
The $1 million question everyone
Yeah.
wants. Yes, you can use hypnosis or hypnotherapy to support your money beliefs. Yes.
Okay.
Because money is tied to what you believe about it, right? And so, for example, if we play a game, if I say, here's $1 billion right now, you probably wouldn't believe me. You would probably be like, oh, that's a lot of money, right? If I said, here's $1,000, you would be like, okay, yeah, I can accept that as true.
Yeah.
So we have a range. We have a belief system of, do we have access to what it's like to have $1 billion? Do we even know what to do with that money? Can I even handle that? But we all sit here and say, oh, I want it. I want $1 million. I want $1 million.
Yeah.
But we have to understand what the beliefs are with that. Do I feel worthy of having that kind of money? What is my relationship with money? What were the examples I had of my parents with money? Oh, now I see the problem, right? Now I see that I'm constantly racking up my credit cards and then I get money and it just goes and I get money and it goes. Why is that happening, right? Everything is tied to patterns,
Right.
which is great news because then we can go and look at what's really happening there. So yes, you can use hypnosis or subconscious work to address your money beliefs and support that change with support you to change your actions tied to money.
Do the rich people, business owners, entrepreneurs, they took the hypnotherapy basically?
I would say yes, a lot of executives, a lot of top tier athletes, they know about this technique and they use this technique for themselves. There's actually one that I don't know that doesn't use this.
Why they need it?
I believe it's first of all going to help them achieve their goals. So if you have a job to public speak for a living and you have a fear about that, this is the technique that you'd most likely choose to support you with getting over that and becoming more successful at that, or becoming a super successful athlete. Probably Olympic athletes use these techniques to support their win, to support their ability to believe that they can do it and overcome it. And with business owners, I mean, that's a great, you understand entrepreneurship is literally going to show you all of your stuff.
Right.
How you manage your business, how you organize your day, how you complete tasks. It's a lot.
Right.
And so I would say if anyone needs it would support them the most because it would help them on a subconscious level to do things easier and faster. And the reason why I love this technique is because it's, in today's world, we're instant. You go on Instagram, everything's fast. And it does work. It's rapid. You still have to commit to it and put in the work, but it is quite rapid. You get a pretty big transformation and it's accessible and it fits within your schedule, right? We don't need to take these, although I love them, but these like trips halfway across the world to have these experiences and these healing processes that require, much integration.
Right.
Where this technique for me personally, I found, yes, this fits in my schedule. Right. I like how this is done. Sometimes it's an hour. Most of the time it goes over, but 60 minutes.
60
and there
minutes?
you go.
Okay.
or 90 minutes, 6 minutes to an hour, like 1 hour. And we can do so much work in that 1 hour. And then comes the post work, which is just the repetition, allowing it to absorb,
Right.
allowing it to settle. And then over time, that becomes consistent. And, the entrepreneurs listening to this know that consistency gets you the results.
Okay, so people like me, not just me, like basically people who are too busy with their life, business, family, and so many other things like different passions, right? So, what one thing they should do this weekend to feel better, not too occupied? Is there anything that they can do, just one thing, and they feel a lot better? Like, okay, they're relaxed now.
Well, I'm smiling because my first question to you is, why are you so busy?
Yeah.
Right?
Why I'm so busy?
This busyness,
Yes.
what does that mean for you? As someone
Right.
who comes from being extremely busy, sometimes being busy and doing all these things doesn't necessarily equal results. So if we actually look at how to be busy about specific things just enough,
Mm-hmm.
you could probably achieve a lot more in a lot less,
So,
or by doing
question.
less.
So, let's say if I have 5 things to do in a day, right? 4 of them I love it to doing. I am busy on those things, doing it, and I'm so happy doing it. But there is one thing that's every day bothering me, and I don't want to do it.
Well, I would ask you if those 5 things, first of all, are achievable in your day.
Yes.
Because, that reinstills this feeling of failure when we don't do the thing that's on our list. And then that reinstills the pattern, right? So if there was one thing on my 5 things to do that I didn't want to do, I would do it first. It would
Okay.
be the first thing that I do.
That you don't want to do, actually.
Do the first thing. Do the thing you don't want to do
Okay.
first.
Okay.
And then watch how the rest of your day goes.
I always put in my last.
Of course, we
Yeah,
do. Yeah, because we
yes.
don't want to do it.
Right, right.
1% per day is all you need.
And how important is it to list down your task every single day?
I mean, we're all different. We all process differently.
Yeah.
So that one, personally, if we don't list it out, you're pulling the thought out and you're writing it down, and then you're accountable for it, right?
Right.
And then we can go back to it and check. And what's really great about this is being able to cross one out. When we cross one out, we're like, yeah,
Yes.
I did it. And that's important. That's self-motivation.
Right.
Because little by little, even fake it, write some things on there. Lunch break. Boom, done. Yes.
Yes.
Motivate yourself in that way that you can achieve that. It does matter, because then that's going to shift your mindset to, oh, I'm getting more done. I feel good. I can do this.
Right.
Versus 8 things that you wrote on there that you can't do in one day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because life is lifing. And now I didn't get 8 of them done. Now I'm a failure. Now I'm behind. Now tomorrow there's 8 more things I can't keep up, because that's how life goes.
Yes.
The things are always going to be there. Always, if not more. The more successful you get, the more it happens. The more responsibility you get, the more money there is, the more it grows. And so to train ourselves that we can manage that I can be responsible with my money, with my time. I prioritize when my family life is. They're non-negotiables. We've already set up what that is to begin with. And so I don't need to think about it, because I already know what my action is. And now I feel it's easy.
Yeah.
Right? Over time, over practice, I should say. It's a muscle.
Give me one, you can say, advice that if I follow it, I'll make more money.
1% per day.
1%?
1% per day.
Okay.
Is all you need.
Okay. What
It
does that
is
mean?
your mindset that will shift you from no money to having money. Okay. And so what I mean by this is the great Warren Buffett.
Okay.
Okay. So he talks about, $20,000 can make or break you.
Make you or break you?
Make you or
How?
break you. Okay. So if I was just starting off and I hit $20,000, what I do with that money can set me up for life, or can end me right back in the same place. And I've experienced this many times. I have patterns with money as well.
Tell me more.
right, where I grew up having that pattern shown to me and,
Yeah.
realizing, okay, well, I do it myself as well, where I make a whole lot of money and I lose a whole lot of money. And now I'm back in the same place.
Yeah.
And this is often our problems. But if I take aligned action to admit I don't really know what to do with money, is the first step. The second step is, well, great. Now that I know that, I know what action to take. I need more information about what to do with money.
Right.
Because the truth is, I'm like, well, no one's actually ever taught me about money in this example, right? No one, I don't actually know what to do. So once I get that information, there's no shame around that. Once I get that information, then I can start taking actions that actually get me the results that I want with my money. And so someone with a lot of money started here at one point, for the most part.
Yeah.
And they just did certain things that allowed it to grow and compound, probably. But they did certain things that they continuously did consistently enough to allow it to get to the place that they need to support themselves. And I'm speaking a little bit generally, but it is a mindset. A piece of information is all you need to get from here to where you want to be, is what I truly believe when it comes to money.
Wow. Nice.
Thanks.
Okay. So, the high achievers, the founders, the business owners, always have a public story. So we don't know what's the real story running underneath. Tell me.
So what my real story is running under my newfound persona is, to be honest, simply me. I am at a place where for a long time I would have two, different personas, two personas. Where I'm at work, I'm one; with my family, I'm another; with this, I'm another. But really, those are all just roles.
Yeah.
And we can actually be all of those things as long as they feel genuine enough to who we are. Then you're no longer acting, and it's no longer feeling heavy. I'm no longer feeling like, oh, well, I have to go there today, because a part of it is already just me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm coming to this podcast. I'm just me right now, speaking from my own experiences. I don't have to act. But when we have to perform or shift or change or believe that we have to be different than ourselves, it starts to feel heavier. And so the me underneath this is actually someone who is very afraid to speak, very afraid to go in front of the camera. It's always behind the camera, very afraid to be seen.
Yeah.
And I'm doing all kinds of things that I would never believe
Yeah.
if you told me a few years ago. Writing a book, doing more public speaking.
Yeah.
And what shifted? First of all, my beliefs and the idea that I can be myself through it all. And that it's safe to show myself and to be myself, and it feels good. And so once I shifted that script, I believed it.
Right.
And so now it just feels easier. So the person underneath doesn't have to be entirely different. I would say I'm a private person. I'm very private. I'm also very introverted, believe it or not. I'm very sensitive. I don't like being out in crowds a lot. Sometimes I can get too okay being alone and on my own. So I actually have to push myself to go and network and different events. So, there's all kinds of things that where we feel more comfortable. I feel more comfortable at home.
Yeah.
But it does not stop me, or I don't allow it to stop me from doing the things that I know ultimately I need and choose to do. And so if we can just bring a little bit of ourselves in those moments, whether it's at home or when we're doing the work that we need to do, it will feel lighter.
Right. You are also an author, right?
Yes.
So tell me, like, how and when did you think, like, okay, you should write something about you or write a book?
It's really interesting how that came about. I had no idea that I would ever write my story. And I said this, I never imagined that the lowest moments of my life are the ones that I would publicly write about.
Okay.
And it really came to me when I realized that my story I wanted to share my story. I wanted to tell my story, but I knew myself enough that, okay, well, what if I write it? I'm going to hold back. What if I post it? I could just delete it. I wanted it to be enough in a way where I couldn't take it back, because it's not just for me, because we're not our stories,
Right.
right? We're not what happened to us. We're not what they said we are. We choose. And so I realized, oh, if I can showcase this, if I can really just share my story, then it would help me heal from it. It would also help me show other people that they can too.
Right.
That I don't actually feel like my story anymore. It's not for me anymore.
Okay.
It's potentially for someone else who was
Experience.
looking for that information,
Yeah.
just like I was. I would have
Yeah.
loved to know that these modalities existed
Right.
when I needed them.
Yeah.
I would have done them with my eyes in a blink
Right.
of an eye,
Right.
but I didn't. And so I want to make sure that through my suffering, the way that I chose to suffer, I don't want, if that could stop someone else from choosing that, then I'll tell my story because of that. And the book deal actually just happened a little bit of intention and a little bit by chance.
Okay. Okay. What did the building this version of yourself cost you?
Everything.
Everything.
It costed me my identity.
Mm-hmm.
It costed me what I thought I was. It costed me the job I had, the people I knew, the friends, the family, the whole personas. It costed me everything. And most importantly, you have to understand that you're going to be misunderstood, right? Not everyone will get it. It does not mean anything about who you are as a person, truly. So for me, I say your own opinion is the most important opinion.
Right.
So this becoming really allowed me to see myself differently for the first time. I got to evaluate myself for the first time versus what everyone else decided for me, which I believed as well. And once I got a say, I realized, oh, okay, well, my decisions look different now.
Mm-hmm.
And that becoming takes time. It's a process. It's different for everyone, and it's your process. So it can look like however it wants to look, and it doesn't need to be fully understood. It just needs to be understood by you. And as long as we're doing that, in integrity for yourself,
Right.
it will be enough. And that's another thing. Fun fact about the money question you asked me is, what is your enough?
Right. What is your enough? That's a good question.
What is your enough?
Yeah. Yeah.
With life, with achievements, and
Yes.
and with money.
Right. So, who is Vanessa when nobody's watching?
Oh, she is, you know what? She's just very to herself. I would say I'm very introverted. I'm at home a lot. I have to actually push myself to go out to networking events, to go outside. I can get very comfortable at home with my cat. I'm very okay being alone a lot. And so that side of me, she's very private. I don't like to, surprisingly, I don't actually like to talk a lot. I'm very silent. I'm very quiet. And then there's this extroverted side who comes out, who loves to dance and talk and do all the things. But typically I feel I'm very sensitive. So I really my alone time is really important to me. And I take it a lot. And I really like to practice what I preach. So I do self-care all the time, every day. It's a practice. It's not something I say. It is a daily choice. And I make sure I fit it in a few times a day, whether that's going for a walk, whether that's not looking at my phone for a little bit. I don't put pressure on that. I just make sure I ask myself, what do you need?
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. Are you building something for the community?
Right now, I am looking forward to building and working with different types of communities that really allow my story to be shared. So I found out I just made it on Next Top Speaker. I'll be speaking tomorrow out of 7,000 applicants. I made it to top
Congratulations.
100. Thank you. So I'm trying to figure that out, where I can share my story and then also support other people to do the same. And so if they want to write about their lives or need support doing that, but I can then, with my connection, support them to do that themselves. and also build a community that is really allowed to just be themselves. Whether that's different projects that they want to work on, and feel supported in the process of their shift in who they are versus who they're becoming or who they would like to return to is really how I see it. Kind of like a returning to who they truly are. And I want to support them in that process. So a few things on the go. I also have a retreat coming up this year. It'll be
Nice.
happening in Italy in October. So if
Wow.
anyone would like to take a trip, this is a yoga and mindfulness retreat, and we're going to have different excursions, visit different villages, ancient villages. And really, again, it's a returning of self in the middle of our busy lives and work days, and offering that self-care now, having it planned now in your books so that when that time comes, you're like, ah, I'm so glad I did this for myself. I'm also looking to create a networking event in Toronto.
Okay.
This came out of a desire for myself, not having access to it. It's for women. We will be calling it a networking event where we're going to align the business aspect of it with the mental aspect of it.
Okay.
Targeted to women specifically, I found that when I was starting to shift into this line of work, there wasn't really many places I felt like I could connect
Okay.
with other like-minded women who are doing the same. And so that's my mini offering to the community coming up. And I'm sure these things will grow and transform and change. But really it stemmed from my own need for it. And I thought, why don't I lead these? So that's what's coming up in the books.
How it feels like building something.
You know best. Building something, it's actually all about the process. For me, when we set a goal for something, the enjoyment comes from who you become along the way versus the actual outcome.
Right.
So for me, who I am today, building something completely shocks my old self, right? And so when I ask myself to make decisions, I ask for my future self. I pay my future self first now that I know that. And that helps me with the ability to build in the long run.
Nice. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, how they can reach?
You can reach out to me by email. I'm on WhatsApp, on Instagram. I'm V.DeMarco _ on Instagram. I'll share this so that you can see it on the screen. And please do. I'm actually very open. I spend a lot of time answering people's messages on Instagram, on WhatsApp. I'm on Facebook as well and continuously growing. But that's really where you can find me.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, for coming to my show. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I have talked on this show about building things, companies, brand, and content. But what Vanessa's stories made me realize is that some of the most important construction work happens in a place you can see on any blueprint. This is Ahmed Raza Khan with Behind the Belt.